The war in Ukraine continues tonight, as does growing international unrest. With Western countries increasingly helping Ukraine, a so far unsuccessful Russia is warning other countries not to get involved. For more on this, we welcome in Dr. Jerry Gendlin of Edinburgh University. And Professor, there's so much to get to, but let's start with this. The United States now supplying more weapons to Ukraine, including longer range rockets. Russia not happy about this. What does all of this mean on the international scale?
Well, a lot of the materials that the United States has decided to supply to the Ukrainians would, in theory, allow the Ukrainians to attack inside Russian territory, depending on where these missiles were based. But the United States has decided that it does not want to risk a war with Russia by supplying even longer range missiles, and they've extracted a promise from the Ukrainians not to strike inside Russia. Whether the Ukrainians actually live up to that promise, we don't know.
And then, of course, if American weapons are used to attack inside of Russia, in fact, I believe Dmitry Medvedev has already warned that there would be retaliation for the folks who supplied those weapons.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think that the United States and Russia are actually going to get into war. Both countries really don't want that, and both countries are very sensitive and always have been to that. But they're going to go right up to the line. They're going to go right up to the point where they actually provoke each other. What the Russians have said is that these missiles that the United States has decided, they have a range of about 50 miles or so, something like that. And that's longer than the Ukrainians have now. They can strike with missiles and very far away, and that's a good thing from the Ukrainian point of view. It's not a good thing from the Russian point of view, and the Russians have said that the United States is throwing fuel on the fire. But it is a fire that the Russians started. And if they really were concerned about fire, they would actually be taking steps to put it out, and they're not. I think what the United States is doing is probably a good idea. And I don't think it'll have too much in the way of long-term consequences. But the Russians are pretty strong in their rhetoric about it.
Professor, very quickly, I want to ask you about this. Henry Kissinger not long ago suggested that the Ukrainians should sacrifice some ground as part of peace negotiations, and that would be the way to end this. Your thoughts on that assessment?
Well, giving up is a way to end the war. That's absolutely true. If you're in a fight and you give up, it stops. On the other hand, it's not a very palatable choice for the Ukrainians to have to give up territory. It is, however, a realistic choice in the sense of realism. Kissinger doesn't really care who wins, I don't think. And he's right, I think, that the way to end the war would be to cede territory to the Russians. But I don't think the Ukrainians will go for that, and I think there's a lot of war left to fight.
So much to keep an eye on. Dr. Jerry Gendlin of Edinburgh University, thank you so much for taking the time with us tonight.